Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Fitness Friday Posi-TIPS with Rachelle, where Fitness Friday is always a great day. In fact, the best day of the week. Gotta love it. Folks, as we continue this important series here, leadership lessons, the importance of truth, this time I'm going to focus on the important topic of what is your problem? What is your problem? Really challenging you on a personal and professional level to evaluate the truth about yourself. See, it's easy to face truth about other situations and other people. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. But today, we're going to talk about what's your problem. What do you need to do? Because truly, in order to help other people, we need to be able to help ourselves and recognize our own strengths, weaknesses, predispositions. All of that is so important, folks. And I hope during this COVID pandemic that you, your friends, and loved ones are remaining safe and healthy and making the best out of what is certainly an unfortunate situation. But remember, keep on keeping on, keep on hanging in there. We will make it to the other side of this stronger and better than ever. I promise you. Folks, this time I want to begin with some sad news. And this is Fitness Friday Posi-TIPS. I also talk about the business side of fitness. Been doing that for several years now. And when I've read this, it really kind of made me sad because the title of the article, and this came from Club Industry Magazine, and so the title of this is Gold's Gym International is permanently closing 30 corporate-owned clubs. Now, Pamela Kufal, the content director, published this on April 16th at 2:01 p.m. And over the years, I've talked about, highlighted Gold's Gym, and certainly when you think about particularly the current modern fitness industry and how the chain concept is really prevalent in what we're seeing today. And Joel Gold is actually, when you look back, study his history, study Gold's Gym, he's actually considered to be the father of the modern day fitness chain. And so anytime I see something with Gold's Gym, it just, because again, you're thinking about one of the pivotal, iconic brands in fitness. And so I'm going to read a little bit of this article. So it says, Gold's Gym International, Dallas has closed 30 company-owned clubs, mostly in Alabama, Colorado, and Missouri, noting that the COVID-19 pandemic had caused the company to evaluate the viability of some of its locations. The company posted the announcement on its social media channels. Gold's Gym International had temporarily closed all of its corporate-owned locations on March 16th due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Temporary closures of franchise locations were left up to each franchisee. The announcement stated, while the COVID-19 related closures have caused us to reassess the viability of some company-owned locations and make the difficult decision to permanently close about 30 gyms, we know that we will emerge from this stronger and ready to grow. This decision affects only company-owned gyms, mainly in our St. Louis, Alabama, and Colorado Springs markets, and does not have an impact on any of our franchise-owned gyms. Our focus is and always will be on our members in nearly 700 gyms in 29 countries around the world. And we look forward to welcoming you back as soon as it is safe for our members, team members, and communities. And so something that you've heard me state, certainly on various leadership episodes, is, this is a situation where, corporate goals, headquarters, evaluated the situation. That again, we've been talking about facing truth and not being afraid of truth and recognizing how are our gyms, how are certainly our corporate-owned gyms performing? Who's performing? Who's not performing? What's viable for the future? What's not viable? And so they made this decision, and as sad as it is, they evaluated what needed to happen, and they made the very difficult decision to close these locations. And that's why I always say that corporate entities, regardless of industry, they tend to make these decisions, where it may be more challenging for a private-owned facility or even a franchise location. I mean, these corporate entities will just make some changes, and make whether, just really make these whatever they need to do. There's really no nice way to say that, but they are certainly known to make the very difficult, tough decisions. And you think about this, and you think about the jobs and the lives that are being impacted by this, and businesses and companies across the nation as a result of this pandemic. And so they made this difficult decision, and you've heard me talk about in the last couple of years, Lifetime Fitness, how it used to be 24/7, and they evaluated that situation and made many of their locations are not 24/7 any longer. They adjusted their hours, and again, that's a corporate it's a corporate chain headquartered in Minnesota, and they made those tough decisions. It may be easier sometimes for a privately owned location, or even a community, or an individual franchisee to say, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to my membership? People are going to leave and do this and that. Yes, they got some blowback from, oh, I can't believe I paid for 24/7 and you changed the hours. And it continues because they recognize, again, it's a cost benefit analysis. And so that's something, you always got to evaluate where things stand, the profitability of your operations, what you're doing, and be prepared to make necessary adjustments. And sometimes that's hard decisions. This, of course, this is a fitness industry type of situation, but this happens in our lives. I mean, this is truly living 101. Requires making tough decisions sometimes, and certainly you don't want to be heartless, you don't want to be cutthroat, but you gotta be willing to make the tough decisions. Many people, again, with this pandemic and businesses are closing, people have been furloughed and all of this, people are going to be making a lot of tough decisions. And certainly I just always want to encourage you to do what's right for you, do what's best for you, your family, and don't be ashamed, don't be afraid to make those tough decisions when you need to, particularly if you're talking about survival. This is a very challenging time that we're in right now. And again, this adversity that we're dealing with will certainly make us all better and stronger as we move forward. And so, now that I've discussed that, so we're going to talk about now, shift gears here, but just wanted to open up with that. Just so tough. Whenever I see anything related, particularly that's unfortunate news about golds, it always just kind of, just pulls at my heartstrings, because gold is just such an iconic brand and chain within the industry, and just wanted to highlight that as we kick this off. But what is your problem? What is your problem? And we all have problems. No one is perfect. We all have problems. And so it is so important during this time where I've mentioned in the last 3 episodes, again, our lives are on pause in many respects. There's a level of stillness that many of us are experiencing. And so now is a wonderful time to evaluate what's working in my life, what's not working in my life. What type of person am I? How are my relationships? And what type of feedback have I received over the years? And what can I do to become a better person as a result of this? You've heard me say over and over and over again, and it is so true. We grow more during seasons of hardship and adversity than we do when everything is hunky-dory, everything is going our way. No. And then that is not a season and a situation and circumstances that are true at this particular point in time. So now is a wonderful time to not look around and figure out what this person needs to do, what they need to do, what this person didn't do and they need to be doing. No. Now is a time where we can all stop, pull out that mirror, like Michael Jackson said, man in the mirror, and say, okay, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What kind of person am I? It's facing truth is very difficult. A lot of people would rather go through life with everybody telling them what they want to hear and tickling their earbuds and, oh, you're awesome, oh, you're wonderful, you're this and that. Yes, we all have streaks, we all have weaknesses. We all have areas where we can learn and grow and develop as human beings. We all have growth areas. If you've heard me talk about now, continuing work on my humility. And next time it's going to crack you up, because I realize, this little humility thing in terms of personal growth and development, this is a topic that is certainly resurfaced in my life, a few times over the last number of years. And so I continue to work on it. I continue to grow. But unless we're willing to face the truth about ourselves and say, well, what are some areas where I can be a better person? It's always easy to look around, but the most important thing you can do at any time, certainly right now, is pull out that mirror and take a look at yourself and face truth about yourself. Because it's not the truth about what somebody else is doing. Yes, that's important, and yes, it impacts our lives and all this and that. But the only person that you can change is you. When we look at a situation like this coronavirus pandemic, we recognize so much is just out of control, normalcy has been changed, and all of this and that. But the one thing we can change is ourselves. One thing that you have control over is yourself. And so let's all take advantage of this time to really look, for those with families, okay, how much, this is, a lot of families are spending time together that they may not have spent in years together. And so families are growing, families are getting reacquainted, becoming more unified. Just there's so many, yes, this is a tragic, difficult pandemic that we're dealing with, but as always, there are always positive things, consequences that we can also glean. And we're seeing people work together, less in terms of where, for example, right here in our Metro Detroit, we've had town halls where our news stations, who are typically competing on a daily basis for viewers and for ratings, they've collaborated together to have these town halls. We've had a couple of them so far. And it's wonderful where you'll look on the screen and you'll see, anchors from each of the major networks. And it's wonderful. And they even comment on the fact that we're typically competitors, but we are thrilled to be working together. So we're seeing teamwork and collaboration across industries, neighbors looking out for one another. Is there anything you need? You want me to run an errand for you? People looking after seniors and recognizing their vulnerabilities and what can we do to help? So we can always, and part of that is just how I'm wired, that even in adversity, that's why it's kind of known that my trademark is overcoming adversity with a smile. But I'm always looking for the positives in any negative or adverse situation. Always, always. If somebody is the type of person who is kind of a Debbie Downer or a Bob Bummer, those type of people, stay away from me. It's true. It's really true. Like, you do not want to be that type of person and then call me complaining or this and that, doom and gloom, the world's about to end. No, I don't entertain that. People learn pretty quickly that's just not, because I'm always gonna accentuate the positive. I'm always gonna challenge to individuals to let's take a look at the positive situations. What are the good what are the good things that are in this, that are resulting in this adverse situations? How is your character being developed? How are you growing? But also, most importantly, what is your problem? How we always need to ask ourselves, particularly in adverse situations, is there anything that not in with this coronavirus pandemic, no, not this, not this, but in any type of adverse or hard situation, we can always ask ourselves, do I have a role to play in this? Is there anything I'm doing wrong? And I'm not talking about a pathological, guilt-ridden conscious where you never feel like you can do anything right. No, that's not what I'm talking about. We're going to talk more about that in a few more episodes when I'm talking about leadership confidence. But I'm just talking about taking and accepting responsibility. Accepting responsibility. But we've got to be able to face truth. We've got to be able to say, hey, I'm not perfect. I could have done this better. I could have done that better. But what lessons can I glean from this and move forward? And if this situation or circumstance or problem, it should happen again, hey, now I've got some experience and I've grown from the experience, and now I'll be able to handle it differently. Now I'll be able to handle that differently. But many people, just this whole concept of just standing up, manning up, woman up, and just take responsibility we need to take responsibility for our lives, what happens in our lives, what works in our lives, what doesn't work. Because it's like I said, it's easy to, oh, this didn't work and it's their fault. No, we got to just say, hey, it is what it is. Is there anything I can do? What can I do to become a better person? Say if a person has a string of bad relationships, okay, the one person you often hear, people say, the experts will say in situations like that, okay, the one common denominator in all of those 10 toxic relationships is you. You got 10 different relationship partners, but you're the constant. So there's been one bad relationship after bad relationship. And it's not till that person will take a stand, accept responsibility, pull out that mirror and say, what is it about me? What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? Why am I attracting this negative situation, these toxic situations? It is something about me. What do I need to do to change, to ensure a different outcome in the next relationship? That's just one example, certainly on a personal, relational type of level. But this is true in professional situations. In fitness facilities, when you hear me talk on and on and on, I talk about the turnover in the fitness industry, particularly on the commercial side. So you may have leaders at corporate saying, oh, our turnover is horrible, this and that, or a franchisee may say, oh, this is just, our managers just can't keep people, we just have this constant turnover. And my thought in that situation, or private entity, or privately owned studio or facility, community entity as well, or chain of entities, to say, okay, hypothetical example, person may say, man, we had real turnover challenge. We had 70% turnover in 2019. Okay, it may be easy in that situation to say, man, our managers, what is it? We got to do something. They just can't keep people. They just keep turning these people over. Okay, and that may be true, factually. You can look at the hard numbers and say, okay, these are the total number of people that left. It equated to 70% of our total head count. There's something about these managers. But what I also would challenge any leader to do, whether it's corporate leaders, franchise leaders, owners of individual private facilities, community side leadership as well, facility leaders, to say, okay, what role am I playing in this situation? That person can say, what role am I playing? Okay, is it true that it's all about the managers and the managers are running people off? Or, as a leader, have I done a poor job of communicating the value of employee retention? Have I not made managers and leaders accountable for employee retention? When I mentioned last fall, just the importance, that needs to be a performance metric. Because why? If there's no accountability for employee, hiring is wonderful and this and that, but retention, if there's no accountability around that, and as a fitness leader, you haven't set expectations, then it's a free-for-all. It's anything goes. And that individual manager, management team, whomever, will think it's okay to have 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% turnover because there's no negative consequences. There's no repercussions for that. And that is so true. But see, that takes a level of humility to say, hey, I'm doing that. What is my role in this? Okay, we've had 80, 70, 80% turnover last year. What can I do differently as a leader? Can I communicate expectations? Can we set firm expectations in terms of performance metrics? Is it a leadership development issue? Is it a training issue? Are we hiring the wrong people? Are we getting the wrong people? In the Jim Collins example I often use, are we getting the wrong people on the bus? Do we have the right people in the right seats? What is our hiring criteria? Are we hiring people that are truly interested in fitness and passionate about fitness? Or are we hiring people who just need a job? Because if that's the case, you better be prepared for extremely high turnover. And if that's the case, okay, take responsibility and say, okay, so what can we do from an employee acquisition standpoint, recruiting standpoint? Could we have them complete personality profiles, DISC assessments, Myers-Briggs? What can we do different to ensure so we can evaluate what is going on? Is this person going to be a good match before they come through the door? You've had the expenses, recruiting expenses, and then they don't stay very long, and now you've got to fill that spot. And it's employee turnover is a very expensive problem. And particularly, we think about this now, post-pandemic, when facilities begin to reopen, yes, okay, those days of just free willy-nilly spending and having people 50, 70, 60, 80% turnover, 90% turnover, I mean, that is just not going to be feasible for a lot of businesses. You know, and it was true in the fitness industry, because that is expensive. Employee turnover is expensive because you got additional recruiting costs. You're spending your time, instead of strategizing and focusing on growing your business and being strategic and doing SWOT analyses and situational analyses and taking advantages of opportunities in the market and working on highlighting your strengths and improving upon your weaknesses. You're spending a lot of time on this Ferris wheel of recruiting, with people constantly leaving. But see, that problem is not going to get better until we've got leaders who are willing to take responsibility and say, hey, this has not been working. This turnover issue, whatever the case may be, you know, membership retention, you know, we're bleeding members constantly. What can we do to plug the bleed, to stop the bleed? Okay, is it customer service issue? Again, go back to the people. Are we hiring the right people? Do they really want to be there? Do they have any interest in people? Are they in the right seat? Are they in the right roles? But it's gotta come back to leaders taking responsibility. Something isn't working here. Something has got to change. Something has to change. And so that's why I laid the foundation of the first episode. The second half of this leadership lesson series is on faith. That's why I talked about facing truth, the importance of determining what your relationship with the truth is. Because if you're surrounded with people who love to tell you what you want to hear and tickle your ears and make you feel good, and then they're not willing to point out problems and come to you with proactive solutions to problems. You know, hey boss, I recognize last year we had a real problem with turnover, but this is what I'm proposing to do next year. You know, how proactive? See, that's a whole recruiting, particularly leadership issue right there. Just how proactive are your leaders? Are they coming to you with solutions? Saying, hey boss, wait, we've got a major competitor that's moving into town. They're predicted to open in such and such time frame. This is my plan for neutralizing that competitive threat. And now if you're looking at this saying, this is something that has just never really occurred to you, of having proactive leadership, particularly at the club level. Coming to you and say, hey boss, this is what I'm planning for the next quarter to grow our business. This is what I'm planning to do from a customer service standpoint so we can improve our member retention rates. This is what I'm planning to do from a cleaning standpoint. We know the cleaning aspect and sanitation is becoming really, really a hot topic as far as when fitness facilities reopen. So, okay, what's a plan? The manager's coming to you with a plan. This is what I'm planning to do. You know, are you always the one kind of pushing and kind of driving for information, for plans, for strategies? I mean, there's a reason why, you know, it's so important, and that comes back to hiring. If somebody is showing up to your interview with a manager, general manager, member of the management team, assistant manager, they're showing up to an interview with a plan. Okay, that's very, very important. Very important. I mean, that's letting you know right there. This is somebody that is coming in the door potentially that is concerned about my business, what to do about my business, how to grow my business, how to make my facility better. But if you're just kind of hiring people willy-nilly and you're going to go, oh yeah, the interview was great, but we never really discussed any hard strategies of, you know, what are we going to do if somebody's coming to the interview saying, hey, the COVID situation has really changed fundamentally the dynamics of the fitness industry. Based on what I know, this is what my plan is. This is what I'm going to do to protect members. This is what I'm going to do to make them feel comfortable. These are the conversations that I'm going to have. This is the messaging. That's what this messaging is going to look like. This is what I'm going to do in terms of dealing with employees. This is what I'm going to help to retain those employees so they can feel comfortable about working here and coming back. And proactive leadership. Proactive leadership. One of my favorite quotes of all time, Maya Angelou. And she said, and this was very, very powerful. This is a very powerful thing in my life. And I first heard about it in 2005. So anybody, actually some of you know, when I used to write weekly inspirational narratives, I used to always talk about the impact that that quote had on my life. And she said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And so now there's a second quote that has certainly made the rounds year after year after year, and it's somebody has tweaked it, and I don't know who tweaked it, but it goes a little bit deeper. In that quote, somebody tweaked her quote and says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. The first time. So if someone comes to an interview with a plan, with plans, with concrete thoughts of what they're planning to do, believe that. And I often say, believe the revelation. Believe the revelation. Some of you know I've been saying that for years and years. Believe the revelation. They're coming in the door telling you that they care about your business, demonstrating that they care about your facility or facilities, versus the person who just shows up willy-nilly and this and that. But then you may be surprised why you have facility struggles in that situation, or turnover is a problem, or membership retention is a big issue, and you just, but it just goes back to, in all situations in life, that is such powerful advice. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. The first time a person is toxic, you got to believe that revelation. The first time somebody becomes or is mentally, verbally abusive, whatever those type of scenarios, the first time, believe it. Believe it. And this is true for all of us. This is true for each and every aspect. I mean, I love that quote. I mean, it's just so wonderful. It's so wonderful. So wonderful. The first time a person has no problem lying to you, and then 5 years down the road, you're complaining that they're a pathological liar, and all they've done is lied for that 5 years. The first time they had no problem lying. I mean, this is so true. This is so powerful. But I got to get back on track with this episode. And so what is your problem? We got to evaluate, what is our problem? My biggest problem in life has been having a false sense of responsibility. Bar none. Because again, when we evaluate what the real problem is, because you've heard me say a long time ago, when I did this fitness industry applicable series on what's your problem, I did this last fall, and I talked about the concept. It's easy for people to want to treat the symptom, but not really solve the problem. And so we've got to be able to solve the problem. That's one thing we learned right off the bat at Northwestern University when I was in grad school. We used to do those HBR, Harvard Business Review case studies. And it's always, what is the problem? Step one, what is the problem? Because if you misidentify the problem or don't address the problem and go right to symptoms of the problem, that problem's going to linger. It's going to be right there. So it's so important that we work on the problem. So for me, having a false sense of responsibility, big time. And to narrow that down, I've had over the years, I have really grown in this area, a false sense of responsibility for other people's feelings. And I told you, when I first kicked off this series, it is very easy for me now to be very polite, to be very cordial, to be very tactful and respectful. But to tell people the truth, although it may be uncomfortable, it may hurt their feelings, it may not be what they want to hear, that used to be a very big issue for me. Okay, yes, I'm fundamentally I'm an honest person. But what I'm saying is I would sugarcoat. I would not say everything. I would hold things back, for fear of hurting other people or not wanting, just making them uncomfortable. Personal situations, professional situations. And this was a big thing for me. And what is the problem of, what does that stem from? A false sense of responsibility. I wrongly assumed that other people couldn't handle the truth. Because I was just like, fundamentally I thought, people are fragile, people can't handle the truth, people are going to start crying, people are going to get their feelings hurt. Yes, people are going to get mad at me, and Rachelle used to be a big people pleaser, so that thought was unacceptable. But taking responsibility for other people's feelings, and that's why I said yes. When I was at grad school, I had my little life plan. Yeah, I was gonna work in corporate America and then start my own business as a consultant and as a speaker. But as I pointed out a few weeks ago, hey, yes, I had the knowledge and the intellect, the ability to consult, but this whole notion of having this false sense of responsibility for other people's feelings, that is a nightmare for me. That is a real weakness as a consultant, because people are coming to you because they want the truth. They are perhaps dealing with, again, situations where people are telling them what they want to hear, and changes are happening and growth is being precluded. And so that is my role, to tell people the truth. Yes, like I said, I'm very sweet, very nice about it, very cordial, just not ruthless and mean and, hateful about it. No, absolutely. That's just not who I am. But just think of, there's just so many different areas where there's this false sense of responsibility. And I've told you in previous episodes about the year I spent as a youth mentor here in Metro Detroit. Now, I spent many years mentoring college students. I loved it. Part of that, again, I'm very passionate about higher education. And so I thought, oh yeah, I've mentored college students. This is going to be a piece of cake. And folks, that was such a challenge. When I quit, and I actually quit before it was time to, before the actual program was over. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this another day. I remember I woke up in April of 2012, like, this is over. I don't want to do this for another day. I just did not like that. But see then, what did I tell you several weeks ago? I made the decision to do that, not based on a sense of purpose, not based on a sense of making a difference. I made that decision based on guilt, because I really felt guilty, and I said, well, you know what, I had a wonderful childhood. I have wonderful parents who love me, who care, and so I felt guilty because other people didn't have that. And so see what I'm saying? When we make decisions based on guilt and any of the negative emotions, those are going to be decisions that in many cases will not be very good decisions. Because that's why it was easy for me to just quit, because I was not driven by a sense of purpose in that situation. I was driven by guilt and a false sense of responsibility. Because only a person with a false sense of responsibility, who, number one, you know Rachelle's two big things in life: my freedom, number two is change. Particularly that freedom aspect. A person with a false sense of responsibility would make that kind of decision. In my case, just knowing that freedom aspect was more important, is very important to me. So a guilt-driven decision, that was a very negative experience, and just overwhelming, and but it gave me good insight into parenting. And so I really just take my hats off to parents. And just, again, now with the COVID pandemic, many people homeschooling their kids, and that's wonderful and all of this and that. But it was just such a nightmare, just this incessant insecurity and neediness and self-centeredness and texting at all hours, and it was just not a good situation. Parents wanted me to pick up their kids and drop off their kids, but what was that? I take full responsibility for that. I had a false sense of responsibility, because again, somebody with more healthy boundaries and at that time, a healthy sense of responsibility would have said, no, this isn't my responsibility. I'm willing to, again, help in terms of academics and college planning and all of that, but that's it. I'm not interested in being, and this is something I used to say back when it was happening, like a surrogate parent in that situation. And so, there is just no way. And so I could see the growth in that year, where I just finally woke up that one morning and said, I'm not doing this. With all due respect, I'm not doing this another day, because I don't have to. This is not my responsibility. I don't have any kids. I can go back now and reclaim my freedom. Yes, I got cards, I got, appreciated, and they were grateful and all of this and that. But folks, it just wasn't a good match. And so that false sense of responsibility, yeah, this is an example from my life. A very, very, very just noteworthy example, but this can happen in all aspects of our life. The person with a false sense of responsibility is the one that is doing 30, 40, 50% more work than his or her colleagues. You know, they're carrying the department. You know, they're doing things like that. False sense of responsibility. Doing things that we're not responsible for. You know, that is truly someone else's responsibility. And so what we can do in those situations is where we venture off into this whole notion of enabling. We're not really helping a person, we are enabling a person. And that's a whole nother set of problems and issues. But this whole false sense of responsibility, ooh, it was a big one. But particularly to narrow it down into taking responsibility for other people's feelings was my big one. Because, you know, people, particularly professional situations, back in, you know, in my corporate years, with, you know, managers would, you know, run things by me. Rachelle, what do you think? What do you think about this and that? And sometimes, most times, I would just tell them exactly what they wanted to hear. I mean, I could be thinking to myself, now this is you're about to run into an absolute brick wall if you do make this decision. If you do this is going to be bad, you know. But that false sense of response, I'm going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. And again, there's practical aspects. There was a practical aspect to that behavior too, is that, hey, like many people, as I've told you before, you got employees, they're going to do the exact same thing to you because they want to keep their jobs. They want to keep their jobs. But I just recognize now just the power of truth. The power of truth. You know, no need to hold back and tell people what they want to hear all the time, because we can do people a real disservice on a personal level as well as professional level. And so that's, for me, you know, that is that, you know, what have you heard me say? And this has been a growth and evolution for me in terms of my own purpose. I want to tell the truth and I want to help people. I mean, that is those two objectives here, primary objectives, in terms of my purpose, those are a result of a lot of growth. Particularly because, again, you're sitting here watching me on Fitness Friday. I would do you a disservice if I had these rah, tell you what you want to hear episodes every Friday. That's not helping you. And I know that. Sometimes you can watch these and they can make you mad. they can just make you uncomfortable. You just, you know, turn me off sometimes. Just click the off thing, whatever. The X on the screen. But that's okay. I'm driven by a sense of purpose that says, I want to help people. And the only way I can do that is to be honest. To be honest about the realities of the fitness industry. The reality about the obesity epidemic that we've had in this country for years and years and years, according to the Centers for Disease Control. And I state those figures every year. You know, but I can't, you know, nothing changes if it's just the same old thing over and over again. And that's why I challenge you. And I know it's not easy at times, but I care enough to do this. Not just to do my Posi-TIPS episodes, but just to truly help you. To challenge your thinking, to tell you things that people around you are not telling you. And again, that takes certainly a level of, there's been a lot of growth on my part to be able to do that. You know, because it's rah. You have these feel-good episodes where everybody loves you, whatever, this and that. But no. That's been an area of growth and confidence to say, you know what? I'm going to help people. It's not going to be pretty at times. You know, I've had people do the same thing, you know, speak truth to me and help me out and help me grow as well. But, you know, we got to appreciate those people, respect those people, value and treasure those people. Because those are the people that truly help us grow and become better. And that's always my goal. So think about that. My big problem, false sense of responsibility. Taking responsibility for things that I'm not responsible for. You know, and it's, I mean, this is going to happen in so many areas of life that I can't get into. But folks, I want to give you another example. I'm just going to read this briefly because it's kind of lengthy. So this is an article I've been saving. This is a Yahoo article that was published on March 5th of this year by Balsaki Roy, and it's titled, "My Husband Turned His Life Around. I Wasn't Prepared for How Much I'd Resent It." And so let me read here a little bit, and I'm going to comment on it, and then we're going to close out talking about, you know, Rachelle's coronavirus challenge. I don't want to walk into my 40s with a paunch. I want to look good in my clothes. I don't want to wade into the pool at the community center with my love handles, declared my husband one morning. That extra bit of body peeking over the waistband of his swim shorts. I didn't say it aloud, but I thought at the time he was being vain. My husband had been grumbling about losing weight for some time now. I understood. I could stand to make a few lifestyle changes myself, but I'd fallen into a pattern of excuses. If he wanted to commit to his health, I was with him 100%. But while I was prepared to see my husband attempt to turn his life around, what I wasn't prepared for was how I'd feel when he actually achieved what he'd set out to do. It was unsettling to see my husband suddenly doing better than I was, personally and professionally. He was coming into his own in his 30s. Meanwhile, after a successful, ambitious youth, I worried I was plateauing. And I'm just going to stop there. It's lengthy. And this is right here. And this is a situation. And the reason I've been saving this, I know I was going to bring it up at some point, highlight this at some point. Because this is a situation that plays itself out. Yes, this right here is dietary and fitness oriented, but this happens in every aspect of life. Where people feel, particularly is the point of these Posi-TIPS. And I'm just one messenger of these type of, these type of messages and life changes and benefiting people positively. But this is one of any innumerable examples of how when a person wants to make positive change or changes in his or her life, there is a concern about how other people are going to feel or how other people are going to react. I mean, in this one right here is just could be a gold standard example of what happens each and every day in the fitness industry. A person decides, I want to lose 50 pounds, I want to lose 100 pounds, I want to start working with a trainer. And they're worried about what their friends are going to think, how their friends are going to feel, significant others are going to think and feel, family members think and feel, all of this, And so when we're making positive changes in our lives, we have to be prepared. And this is something I've always said. If you think people are going to be jumping up and down, rah, 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 cheering you on towards positive life, impacting change in your life, you are sorely mistaken. You are sorely mistaken. You're going to have friends that are going to be turned off and resent you and then all of a sudden become critical. Because why? And so we can look at this. We can talk about her reaction to his decision to lose weight and adopt a healthier lifestyle. We can look at that, some of the symptoms of she's feeling resentful, she's feeling left behind. But what is the problem? That's why I say we can look at the symptoms, but the symptoms don't help. Yes, they give you an indication of what could be going on. So yes, their symptoms are helpful in terms of understanding and diagnosing what the problem is. So yes, let me say that. But the real problem in this situation is her insecurity. It's her truly bona fide insecurity. I'm feeling left behind. He's better. He's doing better than me. And so I want to challenge you, particularly as you're planning for life after COVID-19. And many people are making positive changes in their life right now. People are starting to go out and walk during the days, but some people are becoming more active. A lot of people are becoming more sedentary. But any positive changes in your life, when you summon the courage and you face the truth about yourself and your situation and say, hey, this has got to change. This isn't working. I can make this better. This relationship is failing. I've got to make some changes. I got to work on myself in order to make it a better relationship, or it's going to end, or whatever the case may be, or perhaps this relationship ended. What can I do now to become a better person for the next relationship, whatever the case may be? But it just requires a level of courage to make positive changes. Courage to face the truth about yourself and the situation or circumstances that you're in, but also the courage to proceed forward when you're dealing with the resentments of other people, judgments, criticism, ridicule. So that is to be expected. That is to be expected. But if you're paralyzed and fearful of what are people going to say, what are people going to think? We're going to talk more about this in leadership confidence here in a few weeks. That is an easy way for us to be trapped and stuck with the status quo. As mediocre as that status quo may be, those type of things will keep a person stuck. And I never want you to be stuck. I don't ever want to be stuck myself. But we've got to have courage and we've got to have confidence to say, hey, this is about, in this particular situation, this man is trying to become healthier, more fit, That is a wonderful thing. So if a person or people around you all of a sudden are resenting you and giving you flack, I mean, this causes, you talk about the New Year's resolution crowd every year. There's a lot of this kind of stuff going on. Because that other person will say, well, what do I need to do something? Or, I've been overweight for 20 years, and what am I going to do? And they feel, quote unquote, their own insecurities cause them to feel pressured about doing something. And they're not ready to make any changes yet. So now all of a sudden it's the person who's making the positive changes, it's his or her fault. And so folks, all I'm challenging you today here is to think about, what is your problem? How much of your problems are a result of dealing with or being paralyzed by the fear of what other people are going to say, do, think, making them mad, losing a friend because now all of a sudden you decide you want to stop judging and criticizing every person you encounter, and you and that person are just gossip buddies anyway, and all of a sudden you decide, hey, I'm tired, that gossiping is not helping me. Criticizing and tearing other people down all the time, that's not working for me. And then all of a sudden your best friend, who you've been doing that with for the last 10 years, is looking at you like, well, who do you think you are? Do you think you're better than me? No. You tell that person, no. I just recognized that my behavior was unhealthy, it was unhelpful, and I'm going in a new direction. But see, when you do that, you got to be prepared. Does this person care enough and willing to face their own truth and say, you know what? People with critical, judgmental, gossiping spirits, those are toxic behaviors. Do I want to continue to surround myself like this, or with this and do this kind of stuff, or do I want to become a better person? But just recognize positive changes in our lives, in our business, personally, professionally, relationally, all of that are going to be, you shaking up the status quo. You shaking up the status quo. Many of you post-COVID, when these facilities start to reopen, you're going to need to make some changes. Definitely some big changes. And you've got to be guided by just an inner security and confidence and know, hey, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to have to space my treadmills apart more so than ever. We're going to have to decrease our capacity in terms of the total number of people that could be in the building at one time. Like all of these different changes that are going to be necessary to keep your members healthy and safer. There's going to be the people that says, oh my gosh, there's not enough room in here anymore, and yada, 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 this and that. But it's about doing the right thing, saving lives, helping people, helping to keep your members healthy. Not about the grumblers who are selfish and don't want to be inconvenienced or don't want to have to change their workout times or anything like that, or work around the new spatial requirements that are certainly going to be required post, when the facilities reopen. So have courage and conviction in your decision making, and think about what your real problem is. And I know for me, before I move on to Rachelle's coronavirus challenge, a very big breakthrough came to me, and I actually wrote this, and I've had this little index card you can see here, and I have it dated. So I wrote this, or I made this index card on May 26th of 2012. You can tell 2012, I had a lot of growth in that year. And so, Church Lady Rachelle, and this of course I've got a little quote here, and it came from, I was watching an episode of Joyce Meyer on TV one day, and she too, and she's just, some of her messages, she too struggled with a false sense of responsibility. So I have to give her a lot of credit for just sharing her story and all that, and how she battled with that same false sense of responsibility in different areas of her life. So she said something that one day I was listening. So the actual broadcast day was March 9th, 2012. And folks, this quote is this, and it was life-changing for me. And I wrote it down, and it didn't help me right away, but it had to sink in, and I had to really just kind of grow around this insight. And so for me, she said, what helped her was recognize, and here's the quote, Jesus didn't run around asking people to let him help them. He helped those who came to him. And this right here, and I still got this little thing, and it's sitting up in my guest bedroom on a nightstand, and I just smile when I read this. And another quote, and I can't remember who it was, but I have a little red quote at the bottom that applies to this as well, and it's not from her. Can't remember who it was from, but I wrote it down, and it says, this person had learned through their own growth, I can feel compassion for people without acting on it. Think about that. And so for particularly around this Joyce Meyer quote, helping people, truly, what this comes down to is it's helping people who want to be helped. You know, if you're going out telling people, you know, what they need to do and how their lives can be better, most often that person is not interested in changing their situation. They're just not. And that's why you've heard me say over and over again on these episodes, do not think that you're going to tell your staff or have your staff watch Fitness Friday week after week after week and think that all of a sudden it's going to change them and they're going to be this and they're going to be that. No, what they're really going to end up doing is getting their feelings hurt, feeling inadequate, and taking steps to find another job. That's what's going to happen. And again, I care enough about you to be honest about that. That's why you don't ever hear me say, you know, get your friends to watch this. Get your staff to watch this. Share this. When I share this message that I have for you, I never do that. And that comes from a deep well of growth and insight around the fact that unless somebody's ready to change, unless somebody wants to be helped, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. People change when they want to change. When people want to be helped, they will ask for help. And the truth of the matter is I spent a lot of time, over a lot of years, trying to help people who didn't want to be helped. And so that's why this insight was so powerful for me personally, is that, yeah, when people truly want to change, when they want to be helped, they'll let me know. The people that want to be helped, the people that want to change, the people that want insight, people that want to be challenged, they'll watch Fitness Friday. They'll watch it. I'm not interested in people watching who don't want to be helped. Who, you know what I'm saying? That's why it's just a waste of time. And I've heard, and I just been just because I love people. I have a leadership gift. I love people. I want to help people. I want everybody to live. I want everyone to live their best lives, to be happy, healthy, fit, whole. But I had to recognize several years ago, and as painful as it is for me, that realization, that is not what most people want. I mean, it's just not. Change is hard for people. A lot of people don't want to change. They want to keep exactly what they have. It's exactly where they are. The status quo, it is what it is. And so when we talk about the bell curve, and we talked about, again, the median right there in the middle, and how I'm always interested in the small number of positive outliers. Always. These are the people that are saying, yes, I want to be helped. Yes, I want to change. Yes, yes, yes. You know, and so yes, that is a small group of people, but I'd rather deal with a small group of people that are excited about change and want to live their best lives and want positivity and happiness and success and health in their lives than a whole lot of people who don't. And that's just my philosophy. But folks, this was so powerful for me. This was so powerful for me. You know, a lot of people want to just complain about this and that, but they don't want to change. They don't want to do anything different. You know, and then this is, I mean, I used to have, back in the day, I used to have to do Debbie Downers and Bob Bummers, and you think about the old Debbie Downer, you know, SNL skit. I mean, what does that skit say? You're enjoying your day, everything's going your way, then along comes Debbie Downer. Always there to tell you about a new disease, a car accident, or a killer bees. You beg her to spare you. Begging, Debbie, please, but you can't stop Debbie Downer. And that is so true. And I used to spend time with Bob Bummers, negative Neds, negative Nellies, Debbie Downers, trying to convince them, you know, things can be better. Things, you can do this, you can do that. And it is a complete waste of time. And I have no regrets because, again, I had a false responsibility, so I felt the need to do all of that. You know, now I'm focused on helping people who want to be helped. And my life, my happiness, my sense of balance has been phenomenal. But see, I had to face the truth. How am I contributing to this situation? What am I doing in this situation? Okay, am I an enabler by letting somebody, you know, Debbie Downer, come to me for 10 conversations straight with the same problem? No, if Debbie Downer's coming to me with the same situation in 10 different times, successive times especially, Debbie's not interested in changing the situation or the problem. Debbie's just interested in complaining, venting, and getting that off her chest. Same with Bob Bummer, negative Ned. But this was a big problem for me in my life. And I have a tendency to be a rescuer. Again, I want to help people. I love people. So now, what a revelation. I can focus my time, energy, efforts, and talents on people who want to be helped. So folks, I challenge you to think about what's working in your life. What are you complaining about? What is making you unhappy? But most importantly, what role are you playing in that? The success of your facility or the struggles of your facilities, turnover, relationships, significant others, children, all of that. What is the real problem? We gotta face the truth, because then and only then was positive change possible. I want you to be happy. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be whole and successful. But you gotta want that for yourself. That's something I've said time and time again over the years with these episodes on Fitness Friday and non-Fitness Friday. And so the decision starts with you. So until next week, I look forward to continuing this conversation on leadership lessons. But Rachelle's Coronavirus Challenge, I'm gonna wrap this episode up. As I told you, this is a perfect time for us to learn, grow, develop, become better people. But also recognize, and the first time I highlighted or created this little Rachelle's Coronavirus Challenge part of the episode, so I talked about the importance of gratitude, being thankful, being grateful, recognize how blessed we are in spite of a global pandemic, And so for me, what Rachelle's Coronavirus Challenge, is and has been is, how can I become a better person as a result of all of this? How can I become less selfish? How can I continue to grow in humility? How can I continue to grow in being thankful, and grateful, despite any type of adversity? How can I look back on my life and just recognize what a gift adversity has been? As I told you last time, it may seem like my life is not easy. I have a lot of adversity. I've always had a lot of adversity, but that's why I have the strength and the ability to overcome adversity, is because I've dealt with it a lot. I'm never the type of person where you're going to hear me say, oh, I just hate having storms in life. I just hate having difficult times. I just had a number of them, and I've overcome a lot of them. But that's why I'm able to give you this message of hope and of encouragement to know, folks, that this adversity is good for us. And so during this time of reflection and this time of really evaluating, just looking at my own life, as we're all doing, and reflecting on adverse circumstances that I've overcome in life and thought about different things. And this is something, folks, and this is actually, I keep this in my bathroom, in my master bathroom. And so what this is a little pack of soap. And you may not be able to see it very well, but the actual logo on it is Hotel Capital. And this little bitty soap was in the hotel room of the Hotel Capital, in which my family stayed at when we first moved to Seoul, Korea. We were in that Capital Hotel at least a couple of months, because you got to find housing and all this kind of stuff. And we lived off base, so we actually lived in Seoul, in the Pangbedong neighborhood of Seoul. And so, but we spent a good couple of months in the Capital Hotel. And I think about my experience, and this really just, this has always been in my master bathroom. It's just sitting there, whatever. But now, in this COVID pandemic, it has really served as a great source of renewed inspiration for me. And I want to just share this inspiration, folks, because this little soap, that it's, my different moves to Louisiana, of course, Louisiana and the different states that I've lived in since then, since I left and graduated undergraduate college. This little soap has been with me. I've brought it with me. I keep bringing it with me. But this reminds me of when, at the time when my parents and my brother and my sister was old enough, so she actually stayed in Biloxi, Mississippi. At the time, my father was civil service at Keesler Air Force Base. He was the youth activities director. And so he accepted a job, applied for it voluntarily, accepted a civil service position as the sports director at Yongsan. And Yongsan was the name of the Army base, and is the name of the Army base. But he was at the Yongsan. We were at Yongsan. We were there. But he voluntarily, applied for and took that job because he said, he and my mom decided that they wanted to give us something different. My brother and I, they wanted to give us a unique experience. They wanted to open up doors for us and expose us to a different way of life. And boy, let me tell you how true that is. And didn't appreciate it back then when it was kind of going on. Because I'll be honest, the first night my brother and I got to Seoul, He and I were plotting. We were like, we're going to get deported. We're going to get in trouble so we can go back to Biloxi, Mississippi. We want to be with our friends. Because the world, the minute our plane landed, because we flew from, it was interesting, Biloxi, Mississippi to New Orleans to San Francisco to Narita, and Tokyo to Seoul. So when our plane landed, our sense of normalcy, everything that we knew was gone. Here we were, some Mississippians landing in Seoul, Korea, and our world was forever changed. Just forever changed. Everything we knew, the world that we knew, our life was just turned upside down. We had to learn different things, and we had to navigate different experiences and get creative in doing things and making things happen. But I recognize, I didn't appreciate as much while it was happening and while I was living there, but how much that experience developed me as a person, developed my character, made me better, made me stronger, gave me an undeniable love for foreign languages and cultures. That's actually part of my trademark. You actually see, that's part of who I am. But Seoul, Korea, and it just, that strength and the courage to move forward when your world is forever changed. Your world as you knew it, life as you knew it, is turned upside down. But just how that forces you and how that develops your character, makes you a better person, makes you stronger, helps you to overcome the next time your world and your sense of normalcy is forever changed. And so I'm so grateful to my parents for that experience. My brother is very grateful. So while he and I were strategizing that first night we landed on what we were going to do to get in trouble and get deported and sent home, I obviously love Korea and have been back a number of times for vacation. My brother subsequently joined the Army. His first duty station, permanent duty station in the Army, was right back there at Yongsan. And so he's, apart from living there, he has had 3 different tours of duty of 1 year in Korea. So see, we initially resisted it, but then we opened up our arms, we opened up our minds and recognized, man, this is wonderful. This is a wonderful experience. A lot of people don't get this type of experience in life. So folks, let me challenge you today. I know our world has changed, our sense of normalcy has changed. You're wondering when things are going to go back to normal. Folks, they will eventually. But in the meantime, let's embrace this experience and say, how can this make me a better person? How can this make me a better parent? How can this make me a better friend? How can this make me a better significant other? How can I make a difference in someone else's life? But just know deep down that challenging experiences like these really, 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 if we decide to allow them to make us better and not bitter, folks, get ready, get ready, get ready. So I just wanted to close out with this example from my own life, where I resisted it initially and just, why would you move us here? And I left my friends and I was part of the popular group in school, to, ooh, I am so glad that is the best decision my parents ever made for me, because it truly opened up my world, it opened up my eyes, and I couldn't see it at the time. It gave me a whole different perspective on the world, worldview, that I would not have gotten otherwise. But it came through, yes, some challenging, some adjustments, some difficult situations, but we made it through. And you will make it through this, folks. You will make it through. So keep a determined mind, a positive attitude, and be determined and have courage to persevere through this. We will make it through this. We will be stronger. We will be better. So until next week, I look forward to continuing the leadership lessons and the next part of Rachelle's coronavirus challenge. But folks, hang in there, hang in there. But until then, remember, I am positively passionate about your success, health, and happiness. Make it a great day.